All right. Today, we're going to talk about how do we overcome objections from other instructors. Whether you're in a unit and you're trying to bring these practical shooting ideas in and you're getting hostility, friction, refusal, whatever it is from the senior guys, they're not interested. Or maybe you're new into a unit and you'd like to bring this stuff in, but you don't know where to start and you want to make sure that you do it correctly or you don't make enemies or you don't start butting heads with people early on as the new guy, whatever. Whatever the case is, how do I do it? This has probably been one of the biggest questions that I've been asked most often once I started talking about this on Joel's podcast. Um, and folks are like, how did you do it? What do you think I should do? Here's the situation that I'm in. How would you go about doing it? And almost in every case, the first piece of advice I give is be the product of what you're trying to sell. So this whole practical shooting idea, be well developed in it. Understand the concepts, be able to articulate and teach it fairly competently. You don't have to be super polished, but what you don't want to do is when you're like, yeah, we should be doing this reactive shooting thing, and we should teach predictive shooting in order to demonstrate the reactive shooting and why. And then when they ask what that means, you just be like, well, let me show you this video, and you pull up a video of Ben Steger explaining it. I mean, I understand why you do that. Ben is outstanding at what he does. His videos are great. His instruction is very concise. Ben is very clear in what he's delivering. But when asked, why would you do this? Your answer was, well, let me show you this video on my phone. And that doesn't really carry the same credibility. So instead, be able to do the things that you're wanting to implement, be able to explain them at a reasonable level to somebody who's asking honest, good, or genuine questions. It doesn't mean you have to be a GM, national champion, super squad guy, but be familiar, be comfortable with it, be able to do the things that you want to teach. And I think that in and of itself goes a long way. If you train up and you're familiar with a lot of those things, it probably won't be very long, if not the case right at the beginning, that you are one of the best, if not the best shooter in that unit or in the firearms cadre. And then that kind of starts to shut down arguments of, well, why should we do this? Well, I can do things that no one else can do. So why don't we try training up our recruits or our officers in the way that I learned how to do these things, and we make them better that way. That it's a hard argument to argue with. And then if you can demonstrate it, you can explain it well, articulate why these things make sense in a competent fashion, it goes a long way towards proving your point. One of the arguments that I've heard guys hear, especially from the older cadre, the ones that have been in the units for a long time, is they don't like hit factor scoring. They don't like this whole practical shooting approach because it's gamer stuff. Hit factor scoring encourages all the shooters to prioritize speed over accuracy, and they're just squirting bullets everywhere. Well, anybody who actually understands hit factor scoring, or anybody who can do math, understands that that is objectively false. It's not real. You just have to educate and explain why hit factor matters, how it matters, and what it actually demonstrates, and helps shooters understand kind of at a very foundational level. Where I work, we bring hit factor in as an explanation and a piece of the metrics and puzzle on their second day. They grow, learn, develop under the auspice the entire time they are in the program of learning how to develop speed and accuracy as a balance beam, not we develop accuracy and then we try to plug speed in, or we just develop speed and then we try to figure out accuracy later. The entire time we are showing them and talking to them about how they manage their own razor's edge version of both, and they kind of grow up with it from the very beginning. There's no other way for most of these shooters that are brand new to shooting. They don't know any other way, and so it's always been that. And I think that's a great time to introduce it to them when they're brand new. They don't know any better. They don't know any other ideas. And so they can kind of grow with it. And it makes it very easy to learn. Another way to explain it is hit factor is nothing more. Hit factor is points scored per second. And another way to think of that is it is kinetic energy delivered to the target per second. And that's just what gunfighting is. Whoever delivers more kinetic energy to the center of the target faster is going to win the gunfight. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to train our cops, our recruits, ourselves to be able to do. One of the complaints that guys hear is, hey, we're doing this practical shooting thing and the targets look worse. They're just their targets. The groups are terrible. They're shooting all over the place. They're missing, and everything just looks worse than the old way we were doing it. So clearly this is not working. Well, yeah, the targets are going to look worse early on. That's just part of learning. Self-organization, which is a fancy term for learning how to do a task from within based on the environmental constraints instead of being prescribed a step-by-step process, is the most durable and transferable way to learn any type of skill. The old, what we would call top down, which is like, hey, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, then do this. Step 4, then do that. Anybody that's ever been taught like an old PPCT arm bar where step 1, grab the wrist. Step 2, place your forearm against their elbow. Step 3, take your outside foot and step back to 2.5 as you apply pressure to the elbow. It's like step by step by step. It looks great on a mat. It looks great with a compliant partner. You can check all the boxes for an evaluation. Did they do all the steps or not? Yes. But when it comes time to actually apply and work through and do it on a non-compliant person, adversary, at real speed, when it matters, those skills just don't transfer as well. But self-organization, which is the way all sport domains are developed, has the best transference, the best retention. So when it matters, under stress, it is much more pressure durable than a step by step by step by step approach. Those tend to crumble. So teaching self-organization type approach for any skill doesn't look very pretty early because there's a lot of failure. It's ugly early, but that ugly early allows for a much higher ceiling for performance. If we look at like a learning curve, like the traditional idea of a learning curve, the traditional top down, like we have a very steep learning curve. They get good really fast, then they plateau. And then that's it. They don't get any better because we've given them all the information step by step by step by step. They get to where they can do all the steps, and that's it. And then studies after study after study after study has shown that weeks and months afterwards, very, very quickly, that retention, that plateau falls off almost to zero because the steps don't get retained. So that step by step by step approach looks great. We help them learn for the test, and then after the test, they forget everything. Anybody who's ever crammed for any kind of test knows this like in their soul. The self-organization instead is a much slower, longer learning curve. It doesn't look as good. They don't get to this level as fast. But what happens is they continue to climb, continue to climb, continue to climb. The plateau happens much, much later. But more importantly, after that plateau, the slide where they lose the knowledge or the skill is much, much shallower. They retain it for much, much, much longer, which ultimately is what we want in a law enforcement application. We want to be able to train them to a certain level and have them retain that level for as long as absolutely possible so that they can then take those skills and apply them as necessary. Another way to look at this is, are we teaching them to pass a simple qualification test like an administrative standard? Are we training them to that standard, and after they pass that, we don't care what happens? Or are we actually training them to have a reasonable level of skill that then when the moment chooses them, as they say, or like they're met with a problem that they have to solve, can they select the skills they need, apply them in context, and do well and perform admirably in a way that we as the agency would be proud of? I like to think we would train toward the second one. So that's the approach that I think we should do. But it's going to be ugly early. It doesn't look great right away. You just have to be okay with that. You have to trust in the process that it will improve over time. Occasionally somebody will come back with one where they want to train movement in the practical way, and somebody in the unit, or they don't like the way they're moving around. Like, oh, we can't be moving aggressively like that. We need everybody on a line. And they just do the heel toe walk forward and back. That's the only kind of movement we can do because it's not safe to be running all around the range with guns out. We can't do it safely. And to that, I think I mentioned this in the admin video also. If the job demands it, we must find a way to train it. And it can be done. You can train it. And so expecting them to just figure it out in real life for the first time under stress is not a great approach. So we got to figure out how to train it in on the range within the constraints of the environment that we have, the facilities, the time, whatever. But if the job demands it, we have to figure out a way to train it safely so that they can then perform the way we would hope when they're under stress. What else we got? Time. Nobody has enough time. Where I work, we don't even have enough time, just how it is. So a lot will say, hey, practical training takes too much time. We can't be running around. We can't be doing all these stages. We don't have the time to get through it all. Not most, a lot of the foundational principles for practical shooting, the fundamentals of marksmanship in the way that practical shooting and like practically applying it to shooting works can all be taught on the line, the same way that law enforcement has been training in that legacy way for decades. So you don't lose any time. It's just the approaches that you use, the concepts that you train, the way you think about it, and the way you assess the targets and assess the shooters, the actual goals. Those are different. But the time investment, especially early on, it's not really any different. And then when it comes time to start training the movement pieces or the mini stages or the more running and gunning that practical shooting is kind of, when you think of practical shooting, you're like, yeah, that's what it's known for. When it comes time to do that, it really doesn't take a lot of extra time. It just takes a little bit of forethought. So you may not be able to train movement with 15 people on a line if your range is not big enough. Instead, maybe you drop it down to 3 or 4 guys and you've got 3 or 4 setups with extra space and you run relays. And that way you've got a little space between all of them, and it also gives the shooters time to rest. They can watch other people because we learn from watching other people, learn from their mistakes, learn from their successes, gives them some time to process what's going on. And then it gives you space to allow them to experiment and do this movement piece without worrying about being shoulder to shoulder on a range that doesn't allow it. As far as the stages go, we run mini stages where I work essentially 6 or 7 weeks out of our program. It's more than half of our program, and we do it starting like week 5 or 6 for the entire rest of the program. We run at least 4 stages every day. We can get a squad of 8 to 9 shooters through 4 stages in about 30 minutes. And it really doesn't take a lot of time. Just everybody kind of has to be rowing in the same direction. They have to understand how it works. We explain it the first time, and once we walk them through one rotation of the stages, all our recruits get it, everybody's on board, and it runs like a really well-oiled squad at any USPSA or PCSL match. So what we'll do is we've got all 4 stages set up. We get 4 shooters. It's like, hey, you're on stage 1, you're on stage 2, you're on 3, and you're on 4. Shooter 1, you're going to be up. You're going to shoot the stage first. And we got one instructor with a tablet right there and a timer. And he's going to time and score that stage. So shooter 1 shoots, then they step back. Shooter 2 comes up. The instructor with tablet 2 and timer 2 runs that stage. That shooter steps back. 3 comes up with the next instructor who has that tablet and timer. They run the stage. 4 runs the stage with their instructor and their tablet and timer. Then all of them come up as a group. All of the targets are scored. All of the other shooters help tape. All the shooters rotate down one rotation. The shooter that's on stage 4 goes to the back of the line. The next shooter in line comes up to stage 1. Stage 1 goes to 2. 2 goes to 3, yada, yada, yada. So we shoot all 4 stages, come up, score tape, rotate, move back. Everybody helps tape. Everybody helps reset. And we rotate through all of them very, very quickly. It only takes 30 minutes. 4 stages in 30 minutes with 9 shooters. It goes really fast. The return on the investment for the time and effort involved is massive because the stages look and emulate a lot of the requisite skills that we see in officer-involved shootings all the time. I've talked about on the podcast before, Adrian Yoon's dynamic marksmanship assessment drills. If you throw that into YouTube, a video will pop up. There's several videos on it, actually. You can find the packet on what the stages look like, but they're phenomenal mini stages. I think all of them are 12 rounds or less. They're usually 15 seconds or less. There's movement, there's gun handling, different conformations, decision making as far as shooting on the move, moving to positions, choosing the conformation level they need to in order to get hits. It's all hit factor scored. Phenomenal, phenomenal stuff. We run them all the time, and they're not a time suck for us. And the benefit we get out is immeasurable. Like it's really, really great. Another one I've heard as far as complaints from instructors is this practical shooting thing. It takes too much work for the staff, or nobody but the one guy, nobody but the prophet bringing the good word of practical shooting can teach it. And to that, like, I don't really buy it. I don't really buy that. Maybe that's the way it is when the prophet first shows up. Like the first guy that comes in and says, this is how we should be doing it. He's the only one familiar with it. He's the only one that understands how to articulate predictive shooting. He's the only one that can demo doubles. He's the only one that can articulate and talk through reactive shooting. But how did he get there? Practice, training, self-exploration. That's all it takes for the instructors is a little bit of time. Not a lot, really, just a little bit of self-exploration, a little bit of time spent with the concepts, wrestling with it, not even individually. Where I worked, we all went out and we did like group training, and I led the training. It's like, hey guys, we're going to shoot doubles. And I'm going to talk through what it is. We're going to have you shoot it. We're going to assess it, shoot it some more. And as we did that, guys are like, I get this. I understand what this is for. I understand why we're doing this. I guess I should back up for anybody that's not familiar. Doubles would be you're looking to a specific spot on the target. You're going to connect to the gun, come up, bring your sights to the spot. You're going to pull the trigger twice, more or less about as fast as you can. And the idea is that if I stay connected to the gun with my grip and I just stare at the spot and I don't make any extra inputs on the gun, then I can basically stack rounds more or less about as fast as I can pull the trigger. It's not an engagement strategy, but it is a great crucible, like a super stress test for your grip and vision, because it's going to, the speed invites tension. The speed invites you to do bad things like want to push on the gun. The rapid movement of your sighting system invites you to want to like let your vision depart the spot on the target you should be looking at. And it's a great drill to learn a lot in a short period of time. So when I walked my guys through it, they understood it after they did it. And they're like, I get it now. And now they felt much more comfortable coaching it. And then our later instructor blocks, our training blocks, when we had time, we just had someone else teach it. We all understood the concepts already, but there's value in having another instructor stand up there. They get the reps of going through and articulating it, talking through it, demoing it in front of their peers, which is worse than trying to demo it in front of recruits. So if they can demo it in front of their peers, demo it in front of the recruits, like they'll have that ice cold, no problem. And then we all train it and we take turns kind of critiquing and assessing. You're self-assessing, you're trying to assess somebody else, look at the issues they're making. It's just a lot of reps on doing the thing that we're all trying to get better at anyway. So walking guys through in a safe space, a training environment where the recruits aren't watching, the boss isn't watching, other cops aren't watching, like it's just the instructor guys. It gets them comfortable with the idea. And then when they need to teach it, they need to articulate it, they need to demo it, and then they need to coach it. It's not so scary. In fact, it's easy, relatively easy. This one I still occasionally hear, not from instructors, but I'll occasionally hear this from cops, but I've heard it from other instructors in other places too, which is like, like we can't teach whatever drill, like pick a drill. That teaches bad tactics. X drill teaches bad tactics. Well, we're not teaching tactics. We're teaching hard skills. We're teaching skills that they develop in isolation and then layer them together to be able to perform more complex tasks. And then those skills get applied wherever is necessary. The student, the cop, the recruit, whatever, they take that out with them. And then wherever environment they find themselves in, wherever that fits, they apply it. We're not trying to teach specific tactics on how to do this. We'll take doubles, for example. We just talked about pulling the trigger about as fast as you can. That's not a real engagement strategy. We're not teaching them to do that. But if they are able to pull the trigger more or less about as fast as they can and get reasonably good results, then when they slow their ability, they slow their shooting speed down just a little bit and actually start to react to what they're seeing in their sights, it becomes incredibly easy. There's a lot of bandwidth left because they're not maxed out at the top of their performance level, and it allows them to perform well under stress. Law enforcement has long had this obsession with the idea that the training must look like one-to-one applicable to real life. So whatever we're doing in training must have a scenario. It must look as close to real life as possible. We will accept no substitutes. Every drill has to have a backstory. Every bullet has to have like an exact purpose. Every step must have a reason behind it. Moving to cover, working around my cover, or whatever the example is. Like, it's always got to be like one-to-one applicable as far as a scenario based. And I hate that because it's really inefficient, it's really short-sighted, and it's dumb. It's just dumb. Like, we train skills in isolation, apply them in application later, and depending on the context, it doesn't have to be one-to-one. Not all scenario training is dumb, but trying to make all training scenario based is dumb. And I'll give you an example. So if you take a Blake drill, and that would simply be like 3 targets about a yard apart. Anybody that's ever seen like the El Presidente setup, that would be the same for a Blake drill. And for a Blake drill, you're just simply going to draw and you're going to shoot 2 into each target about as quickly as you're able to. The idea is you want to get A's, but it's a transition drill. You've got to get your eyes to the next target, get the gun over there, get the gun stopped so you don't just kind of swing the gun through the target. And just painting bullets all over the place. Like, I want to stop, I want 2 A's, and then the instant I'm done pulling that trigger, I want to get my eyes to the next target and get my sighting system over there for the next one. Somebody might look at that and go, when am I ever going to have 3 bad guys standing 5 yards in front of me, like shoulder to shoulder, and I'm just going to mow them all down? This scenario is dumb. Well, it's not a scenario. The idea here is we are testing and training the ability to look to a spot and have my gun show up there. That we do all the time. You can be in a building search, and as I'm looking over here and I've got my gun pointed in that direction, I hear a sound that direction. I need to look. I see a problem. I need to have my gun show up to that spot immediately. Like, the applications are endless. The ability for us to look to a spot and have our gun show up there, whether it's coming out of the holster or transitioning, we do that all the time in law enforcement, whether we're shooting or not. But we can train it in ways that are very efficient, that don't necessarily look exactly like the way we apply them in real life. So this whole idea of like, well, it's training bad tactics, or this is teaching bad habits, I don't buy any of that. We're simply teaching skills, and it is up to the individual to put those skills wherever they need to go when it's time to apply them. Lastly, I would say look for places to try these things out. Where can you work this in? Maybe on your own. Maybe you don't have full buy-in from your unit yet. Where can I try it? Do you have like a continuing ed class that just you own or just that you teach? Roll these things out there. Give them a try. Do you have an in-service block that's just your turn to teach? Well, roll some of these things out there. Maybe not all of them. Pick a small chunk, something that is digestible in the moment, in the time that you have to apply, and teach it and run it and see what happens. I think by doing that, you can get data and get feedback, get surveys, ask the officers or do a formal survey at the end of the class. What did you think? Did you like it? Do you want to see more of this stuff? One of the guys I talked to, I think they were at a sheriff's office in Georgia. They ask for a recruit class. It's like, hey, we've always taught recruit classes this way. For the next class, would you let us teach the first week? Let us teach week 1 our way, and let's just see if something changes. And they kept data, like what were the score metrics, what were the average quals at the end of the week, and how did that compare to the other classes that they had come through. And so run little trials where you're able to get data, get feedback, and if it's positive, you can use that to kind of grow your influence or make your case for why we should expand this. So ultimately, guys, I hope those ideas are helpful. If you've got other questions or other pushback concepts or questions that you've gotten from guys in your unit that I didn't address, like, throw them down below. If you've got other questions about other topics, feel free to leave them down below. I'll answer them in another video. I'm supposed to ask for you guys to like, share, and subscribe, or so it was explained to me. Do it if you want, or not. That's cool. We can still be friends if you don't. So anyway, take care.